Greetings one and all. My name is Ras Sema Selassie, and I'm coming to you in the name of His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, King of Kings, Lord of Laws, the elect of God, conquering Lion of the tribe of Judah. Yes, I. In the name of the power of the Trinity. Just coming to you to just inform one-on-ones, give little ones like, a little history, to kind of settle the minds, kind of break down the barriers of division, to really operate in love, and to operate in love, which God is love, and Haile Selassie the First shows the greatest love here within this dispensation, from emulating Yeshua HaMashiach, let's say that as well too, with Jesus Christ. That's what we need to do. If we want to centralize and organize, we know the answer already. So I don't have to tell you the answer because it's already written on the tablets of your heart. I just pray that, Rastafari, the Almighty, the Most High, continue to prune the movement from the people who has nothing truly to offer in it, besides reducing any type of value that foreign people may see and conceive a misconception of what Rastafari is really about. So I'm coming to you on the subject of Kemet and Ethiopia as one land. At times you hear debates, things going on between, you may hear things going on between Rastafari people now within this time of learning about Kemet, which was now called Egypt, and me personally, I am captivated by that history. I always was interested in Egypt, the pyramids. I mean, that's one of the first places. That is the first place I wanted to go to when I first learned about Africa as a little boy. First place. It's captivating. Who doesn't want to see that history? You know what I'm saying? Who don't want to go in one of those rooms, chambers, and see the inscriptions on the walls? That's amazing. It's indebted in stone. It's official. You see me? So anyway, one be like, sometimes the dispute can be, Ethiopia is greater than Kemet in regards, I guess, value. I don't believe so in value because both parts are, in regards, valuable. Valuable. But I will, inform one-on-ones if ones to get the book of Check Anta Diop, African Civilizations, the full title, but check that book out. And in there it does talk about, and you can find it from probably other sources as well, but in there it do talks about how Kemet was created by the rivers, or by the waters coming from the rivers of the Nile from Ethiopia. Ethiopia, is real high above sea level, and Kemet's not as much. So you create a slope, a hill. So from the waters from Mount Kemet, you have that flowing down, to formulate new land. It's giving birth to a new land. It's providing water, and water is the necessity of life, the essential essence of man. We have to keep our bodies hydrated. If not, our body begins to shut down, working properly. So water is the essential. Yeshua HaMashiach said, you will have, he's like the water of life. So, anywho, but I'm not speaking on that term. I think the term, or what I'm trying to say, I don't stand on the term as if one land is greater than the other. I'm coming to tell you that that way of thinking is not very similar. It is what it is. I think it's a colonial disorder. And I'll prove to you right now, if you do have his speeches, and if you don't have his speeches, I advise you to get his speeches, because if you're, as a Rastafari individual, and you don't have to select the speeches of the Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie the First, I feel as though that you're not really taking this triad serious. I feel it's very similar to And I'm saying, I mean, you gotta use the word serious. I just ask that you seek him more, because if you don't seek him more, you also don't get the fullness of your inheritance, which is righteousness, salvation. You understand? So I just ask that you do so, because it's almost like you have $1 million, but you're not trying to use it. Matter of fact, you just let it go to waste. You can do some things with that. You can earn probably another $1 million. You know, it's what I feel is in regards to the speeches of Haile Selassie the First. It's valuable to your own spiritual growth in life, and spiritual understanding. It's part of your Bible. You know, so I suggest ones do read the Bible, and ones do read the speeches of His Imperial Majesty, because he, in the way his mind is, which is a righteous mind, it gives you interpretation of maybe some Bible scriptures. You know, if you just read. I feel like one-on-ones sometimes can shut other Rastafari people out, and these one-on-ones is in high places and seats that can actually make some judgment calls. You know what I mean? Maybe not something like big, but like, you know, someone has an organization or whatever, and a new idea maybe has been brought forth, and the individual who brought it forth and presented it forth may not have probably done a good job, or probably did a good job in presenting information. Nevertheless, because the leader wasn't up to knowledge of the movement or the figure that we're speaking of, Haile Selassie the First, that great idea didn't come to pass. So, education. If you read in the selected speeches, the first section is education. And I suggest one-on-ones read it. Take some time, read it. When you wake up in the morning, and just read it. Refresh your mind. You know, this don't have to be the end all. You know what I'm saying? Or is all. It don't have to be that. You know, just for this season, learn about His Majesty. Because for the next season, you might be learning about something else. You know, and you know, try to commit those things to memory. And so, you know, accept that enlightenment that's gonna come. So I'm speaking on Kemet, Ethiopia's one land, because I don't feel divided. If I reading up on Kemet and the stories and the teachings of Osar and Heru, I like them. I see nothing wrong with them. I see one spirit. I don't see one evil spirit trying to remove me from a righteous spirit. No, evilness is evilness. Evilness is people that commit murder, people that lie, people that steal, people that, you know what evilness is. So when I read these books of Kemet, I don't lie, I don't steal, I don't commit no murder. And matter of fact, it tells you that in the 42 laws of my act. 42 of them things, of things that you should not do. And you make affirmations. You know what I'm saying? Not affirmations, but declarations. You're saying out loud, I am not a thief. I will not sleep with the next man's wife. I will not, you know what I'm saying? Because when you say it out loud, you know, you saying that to within your own self. Because your subconscious will try to tell you something else. Sub means below your consciousness state. So anything below, you already know, is not coming from the upper room. You know, you gotta keep your treasures up in the Most High, the heavens. So the subconscious ain't your friend, just letting you know that. So when you have a great idea like, yo, I gotta talk to that person, but someone's telling you like, oh, but you don't know what that person gonna say, you know, hey, you know, be careful. That's that subconscious kind of like scaring you out, because that first thought was righteousness, that was that boldness, that was that lion. You know what I'm saying? So you got to follow the lion. Don't follow that snake that kind of creep up below. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, bun that. So Haile Selassie the First, you know, as is written in the academic honors of Haile Selassie the First, that his favorite subject was history and comparative religion. So I also asked Rastafari people to look up on that, to read that, to kind of, not saying study, because study, when people say study, it kind of means people think that you get to drop everything and just sit at a desk for hours and just read up on it. If you have the time and the spirit moves you to do so, go on and do it. but at times just kind of put within your schedule, your daily schedule. I mean, be open to read something about Hinduism if it come across your path, because you know the Almighty has formulated a path for each and every single individual, you know, like care packages and gifts to kind of formulate your character, to try and develop you as a person that you should be, you know, to help others. So we don't really see these care gifts or care packages that's set before us, you know, because sometimes our mind is closed. If we open our mind, we'll begin to see, oh man, that's for me. Because these thoughts will come to your mind when you keep your mind open. So in regards to like comparative religion, at least how it was for me and how it's been for most of my life, once I read the speeches of His Majesty, and before I read that, before I had my experience with His Majesty, because we all have different type of experiences with the Almighty, that allowed me to develop a foundation in trusting Haile Selassie the First, you know, studying about Haile Selassie the First and the history of Ethiopia, and to the point where I came across a speech where, in the book, where it says he liked comparative religion and history. And I do like history, but I never was really into comparative religion, but I was open to it because I see signs, because I'm not, I mean, we know dummies. You know, I'll be a fool to say only Rastafari people is the only righteous ones on earth. I'll also be a fool to say that there's only Christians who are the righteous people of the earth or whatever, you know what I'm saying? There's good people in every single ethnicity, culture, faith, you know, and there's wickedness in each individual culture, you know, ethnicity, and faith. There's wickedness and goodness in all of it. You know what I'm saying? And what I mean is that you have people who are very wicked, who's walking under the title of these faiths, operating in these faiths, doing work in these faiths, but coming from a wicked mind. Then you have some that's, and it's really destroying people and really putting impressions on people that this faith is nothing, you know what I'm saying? And it should be, you know, do away with and things of that nature. Then you have the ones who are actually doing good in this faith and really showing people what it really is about, you know, and blessing people and giving people hope and sharing with people the you know, the opportunity to get closer to the Almighty. So we give thanks for that. Them the ones that we need to work with, you know. And I also will say too that we gotta get to the point where we no longer judge people by the color of their skin, but the character of their heart. Marcus Garvey said it best. Honorable Marcus Garvey said that I don't plan on taking all you guys to Africa. Some of y'all was no good here and it'll be no good over there. The opportunity, the thing is, if I was to break it down, I'll say independent variables and dependent variables. I guess would the independent variable be? Would the independent variable be the fact that your character was bad? Like Marcus Garvey said, you was no good here, so your character presented nothing that was good. And what happened? The dependent variables, you didn't get a trip to go to Africa. You know, he not fighting for you. He's fighting for your rights, but he's not really fighting for you to go over there because you ain't gonna be no good to the nation. No good in the continent. Anyway, so I feel as though one-on-ones, when they feel compelled to choose between these two nations, Ethiopia, Kemet, I say, you know, you have to look further than that. And I feel as though that's a colonial disorder. And as Rastafari people, I will show you why it's okay to label it that, and that we must move beyond that and bust that barrier down, bust that stronghold down. Haile Selassie wrote a speech called "To Chart a Course." Just look it up. Can't give you the dates or when he did it. Just look it up. It's in the selected speeches. All right, to chart a course, and I'm gonna read it to you. We seek at this meeting to determine whether we are going and to chart the course of our destiny. It is no less important that we know whence we came. An awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personality and our identity as Africans. Let me repeat that. I think say that's verse 3. An awareness of our past is essential to the establishment of our personality and our identity as Africans. Let's continue. This world was not created piecemeal. Africa was born no later and no earlier than any other geographical area on this globe. Africans, no more and no less than other men. So all that stuff that Babylon teaches, that, the African man, the indigenous man, is 1/8 of a human being, one that. And the fact that a society will perpetrate that or propel that is foolishness. But you know what though? Let me teach you something. You have this form called the House Joint Resolution 194, I believe, which is basically Congress writing, was it Congress? I believe Congress writing how the names of African Americans, so-called African Americans, have been stolen. The culture has been stolen, religion has been stolen, their identity has been stolen. So that apologizes for that. It's an apology letter. And that letter allows you to go and read your history and claim who you are. But you know it's written in the tablets of your heart. You must be educated first to make an educated decision. Let me continue. Africans, no more and no less than other men, possess all human attributes, talents, and deficiencies, virtues, and faults. Thousands of years ago, civilizations flourished in Africa, which suffer not at all by comparison with those of other continents. Right over. This world was not created piecemeal. Africa was born no later and no earlier than any other geographical area on this globe. Africans, no more and no less than other men, possess all human attributes, talents, and deficiencies, virtues, and faults. Thousands of years ago, civilizations flourished in Africa, which suffer not at all by comparison with those of other continents. Read that again. Thousands of years ago, civilizations flourish. What kind of civilizations were these thousands of years ago? Kemet was one of them. Do your history. Kemet was a civilization that flourished thousands of years ago. But they weren't the only ones either. There were other ones too. We gotta do the history though. We gotta do the research. Alright. Let me continue. In those centuries, Africans were politically free and economically independent. Their social patterns were their own, and their cultures truly indigenous. Let me read it again. Their social patterns were their own. That means to say that that was theirs and that had nothing to do with us. No, he's trying to say that it was their own social pattern. They didn't get, dominated by another nation and that nation gave them a social pattern. No, they developed it on their own. That's what we want to do, right? So why would you look at that as a negative thing? The obscurity which enshrouds the centuries which elapse between those earliest days and the rediscovery of Africa are being gradually dispersed. What is certain is that during those long years, Africans were born, lived, and died. Men on other parts of this earth occupied themselves with their own concerns, and in their conceit, proclaimed that the world began and ended at their horizons. Look at that. He's saying right here that people in other parts of the land, or other parts of the world, mind was so boxed in and closed that they thought that they was the only ones here on this earth. that there weren't people here either. Other people here. We gotta open our minds. And because of that thinking, look what happened. All unknown to them, Africa developed in its own pattern. So they ain't know about that, but Africa had its own pattern that developed in. Growing in its own life. And in the 19th century, finally re-emerged into the world's consciousness. The 19th century. What happened during the 19th century? Let's look that up. The 19th century, what happened is between the timeline of 1801 to 1900. And during that time, you had people picking up Africa. You had Ethiopia, defeating Italy. That's very, very big. So people in the world now know, like, oh, Africa, forgot about y'all. Y'all really are. You know what I mean? I gotta respect that. Let's continue. This next one is called Fettered and Bound. It's like the next chapter. Fettered and Bound. The events of the past 150 years require no extended resuscitation from us. The period of colonialism into which we were plunged culminated with our continent fettered and bound, locked up, with our once proud and free peoples reduced to humiliation and slavery, with Africa's terrain crossed hatched, checkered board by artificial and arbitrary boundaries. This is where I need to stop for a second and explain why am I creating this video. Because I'm creating this video to enlighten one who wants to understand that if one have to choose between Kemet and Ethiopia, then you may have to check yourself to see if they should not falling under a colonial disorder. Because as Haile Selassie the First has written and has spoke right here, he said the period of colonialism locked up the continent, and the people who were once free was reduced to humiliating circumstances, embarrassment, slavery, and the land was then cut and checkerboarded and created maps and drew arbitrary boundaries of, okay, that's Egypt, okay, that's Ethiopia, that's Sudan, that's Ghana, But before, it was no arbitrary boundary lines. It was one land. It was one nation. And now, Luciano made a song, big up to Mr. Luciano, United States of Africa. And the Organization of African Unity was trying to lead into that type of direction too. Have a unified Africa. Because Africa was divided based on the period of colonialism. So that division between these two lands, that's now within being faced in Rastafari is, which one I'm gonna say is part of that colonialism effect. And we have to check it. We have to get rid of it. And and it's all love, because Rastafari is a faith that you can say started in 1928 when before Haile Selassie took on this name to be emperor, was crowned King Rastafari or Negus Rastafari. And then, that opened up the world consciousness with the few African people that had delivered that message to the people whether in the islands or in the States. Or you can say it started in 1930. Either way, it's 2016. That's about 86, 84 years. 88 or 88, between 88 and 86 years, or 86 to 88 years that Rastafari, as a way has been proclaimed. But though this ancient faith has been around for a long time, because this faith is not no new faith. People in the day always hailed the king as God in the flesh. Always. And that's coming from anything out of Kemet. Asar, coming from out of Ethiopia, to now colonize, because according to these Greek writers, they say Egypt was a colony of Ethiopia. So they use that word colony, that was their definition. But in a way, if Ethiopia gave birth to the lands of Egypt, then they're not colonizing them. Like, we don't colonize our children. No, that's our child. We teach our children, and we send our, experts down there to develop our children. So Asar came out of Ethiopia down to Egypt and ruled in the name of the King of Kings, as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. It's written in that book. You know what I'm saying? Check out the Dia. And you can read it, for other sections too. So you read these things, which Haile Selassie the First also read, then you come to the point where, okay, you have an open mind, and I say, all right, I hear what you guys say. Because the teachings of Kemet, may have developed in their own personality from the inspiration coming from out of Ethiopia, but it's still that same source. You have a big body of water, and that water cuts through the lands to distribute its source of life and teachings and, necessities, vitamins, nutrients, minerals, you know what I'm saying? To every single person within the lands. And each person on the lands received that with a different type of reception. Each individual person is unique and different. There's not one snowflake that's designed the same, from what science have said. Each person is different, but we do know that we have a soul within us that recognize other souls, or spirits in us that recognize other spirits, and that's even with evilness and even with goodness. We could recognize each other as kinsmen, by certain things we say, and how we carry ourselves, and we kind of develop each other. At the end of the day, we're talking the same thing, we just have a different, saying for it. So, anyway, when these colonials drew these lines, like I'm looking at this map I have in my room, I see these lines all up on here. But now I can look at it like, nah, these lines ain't here. Though, some of them may have some different territories before the colonial period came, but it was still one land. Still one land. So, let's keep moving. Many of us, during those bitter years, were overwhelmed in battle. And those who escaped conquest did so at the cost of desperate resistance and bloodshed. Others were sold into bondage as the price extracted by the colonialists for the, quote, protection, unquote, which they extended, the possessions of which they disposed. Africa was a physical resource to be exploited, and Africans were chattels to be purchased bodily, or, at best, peoples to be reduced to vassalage and lacklihood. Africa was the market for the produce of other nations and the source of the raw materials with which their factories were fed. Haile Selassie the First words this: today, Africa has emerged from this dark passage. Our Armageddon is past. Africa has been reborn as a free continent, and Africans have been reborn as free men. The blood that was shed and the sufferings that were endured are today Africa's advocates for freedom and unity. Let's read that again. The blood that was shed and the sufferings that were endured are today's Africa's advocates for freedom and unity. So people that died for this land, died to, free up this land, all these African heroes, check what he say about them. Listen to this. Those men who refused to accept the judgment passed upon them by the colonizers, who held unswervingly through the darkest hours to a vision of an Africa emancipated from political and economic and spiritual domination, will be remembered and revered wherever Africans meet. Jah Rastafari. Yo, we know Haile Selassie is a Christian man, but he was a balanced man. He had no form of bigotry at all. He said religion is personal and the state is for all. So with that being said, you're living in the state, you must respect all people. Your personal faith should not be a detriment or a burden to other people. I'm a Rastafari man, proud of it. But I'm not going to put this on other people. It's going to mold my character to be a better person, to help serve people, to give people sound advice, to not lead people into a hole, into a ditch, prison, debt. I want my people to be debt free. I want my people to be free out of them cages. But you don't have to be a Rastafari man to have these same type of objectives and missions. You could be a Christian man. You could be a Hindu man, or Hindu woman, or Christian woman, or a Rastafari woman. You could be, even some people don't even have so-called atheists or whatever. Doesn't mean that they worship the devil. It just means they don't follow that. What's the word I can say? Because I don't really understand it myself. But there are some good people who are atheists. But how could that be? Because God is in every single one person. And they may not identify that as God. It's just what we have to do. Anyway, I'm not trying to promote that. But I am trying to open one's minds. He says all these people will be revered. If I read it over again, let's take it off of me, let's put it back on Selassie. It says those men who refused to accept the judgment passed upon them by the colonizers, who held unswervingly through the darkest hours to a vision of an Africa emancipated, freed from political, economic, and spiritual domination. What do these colonizers bring when they come to these lands? And many people be like, Christianity, ring, 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 ding, 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 yes, that, and Islam. Don't forget about that either. I was there reading in Ethiopia that in certain parts of Africa, that Christians didn't really want to partake in slavery after a while. The Christian colonizers, in regards to like selling them. So it opened up the market for more Islamic people to be part of that slave trade, and be part of that business. But the colonizers still use, Africans as slaves. But because they had somewhat of a conscience or whatever, it allowed the Islamic ones to fair game. So that's spiritual domination, because now you bring in not only your pain and suffering, but you bring in your theology over here too, which was doing good way before you even came. So that's why you got to respect the teachings of Kemet, because that's one of the things of the downfall of Kemet was the invasions that consistently happened, that they fought over and over and over to defend, and after a while they began to get broken down. The Bible says I am God that brought you out of Egypt. That's true. But he's talking about the Egypt that no longer followed the Almighty. I'm letting you know there was an Egypt that really followed the Almighty. And them the ones you have to really research and look at. And them the ones that were us. When one of us came over, like Alexander the Great came to Egypt and put a knife to one of these priests' neck and forced the priest to anoint him as, I believe, God on earth, Heru. I may not be quoting to the full, but Alexander the Great did that when he came over and conquered Egypt. So you had these things that were happening. Egypt has always been a fort where it was always fighting people to protect its treasure. It's connected right there to the Middle East, which is also part of Africa. It's right there on the outskirts in the Mediterranean, within that area, that Gulf or whatever. They right there. They really was the strongholds. They, to defend people coming from the next continent over. I mean, just look at the map. On the borders, the outside border of Egypt, if you look outside that's the end of the continent of Africa. And after that, you have, Turkey, and things of that nature. And after all, these walls began to break down. These other civilizations grew stronger. They had a strong faith in militarism. Militarism is something that swept the country during the imperial times. World War I and World War II, and still to this day. Militarism is the idea that the bigger your army is, the more you can conquer. And now look at it, if you can conquer land, sea, and the air, you will be a powerhouse. And now they're going to try to conquer the space. You're trying to be powerhouse. You're trying to control total domination. So it says, emancipated from political, economic, and spiritual domination. But what will happen? They will be remembered and revered wherever Africans meet. Revered. Rastafari name means the head to be revered. So he's telling you that these other people will also be revered wherever Africans meet. And I am an African man. Yeah. Many of them never set foot on this continent. Others were born and died here. What we may utter today can add little to the heroic struggle of those who, by their example, have shown us how precious our freedom and human dignity, and of how little value is life without them. Their deeds are written in history. So all these people's deeds are written in history. And we could hail up a few, because he actually talking about the ones who did these things. Marcus Garvey will always be held as possibly John the Baptist before his deeds. The Black Star Liner, the UNIA, organizing the 1 million+ African people. He will always be revered for his deeds. That's a fact. So despite what he has written about Haile Selassie the First, we as Rastafari people have to get over that. The ones who are truly offended. Because we can't be more offended than the king is offended. Because it's directed to the king. It's not directed to you. You know what I'm saying? And the way he did it, he put a wreath on his grave. That's a form of respect. And he ain't badmouth him. And if you read it right here, he's letting them know, truth is, because of the great things that they've done, they will always be revered. So Marcus Garvey's name will always be in that conversation. So don't get so much in your feelings per se when one of the ones have to hail up Marcus Garvey, or even say he's John the Baptist, because he did baptize a lot of people into Rastafari. Straight up. You can't take that away. That's the testimony. You can't take away people's testimony. So let's name a few, right? You have Marcus Garvey. You have Kwame Nkrumah, Nelson Mandela, Patrice Lumumba. They will always be revered wherever Africans meet. Their deeds are written in history. Once again, these are people. They weren't perfect, but the things that they done with their talents and confidence and a just cause, they was able to do some great things for people. You gotta respect that. So, in conclusion, what I'm trying to say, if you feel compelled between choosing the two lands, don't be compelled. I mean, don't feel that way. That's that colonial disorder. I want you to grasp the fullness of your inheritance. Africa was one land. Kemet, Ethiopia was one land. That's your inheritance. Ethiopia remained dominant, but let's let it be known, it was independent of what they can hold in their independence. All of the continent was Ethiopia. So Ethiopia as a whole have lost maybe about 90% of its land, but that 10% was left for the Almighty. Be appreciative of your history. Learn it. Educate yourself. I repeat, and if you get the selected speeches, I mean, it's free. It's a PDF. You know, I could probably post a link down here if I'm able to do so. But I'm trying to let you know that the first sections of the selected speeches is education. You gotta educate yourself so you could be way more effective in this trial, in this experience, in this history, in this growing faith that only been around for about 88 years with the label called Rastafari. Blessed love, my Lord Empress, my brothers and sisters, my Adrian and sister. Blessed love to all Rastafari people. Blessed love to people who may not be even Rastafari but is interested in it. You know, get around some people. No, first and foremost, know what's right in your heart. Know what is righteousness, and that's by seeking the Lord, seeking your Creator, whether reading your Bible, or whatever positive influence that can give you an idea or formulate thoughts or a relationship with your Creator so you can become a better person. To identify what goodness is, to identify the spirit of the Most High from things that are not of His. Rastafari bless. Peace and love.